Hello and welcome back to My Own Worst Enemy. It is unboxing time again. This time we are going to unbox USN Deluxe. I heard Ardwolf mention this over at Ardwolf's Lair. This is something he's looking for, and I realized when he mentioned it that I had this sitting on the shelf and haven't opened it up in quite some time, so I thought we'd do an unboxing of it. This is based on USN, the game of the War in the Pacific that came out in 1971. It was in Strategy and Tactics magazine number 29, and this, as I said, came out in 1971. The original game did not cover the entire war. It covered 1941 through 1943. It was designed by Jim Dunnigan, and it was released through, of course, SPI. And so this one came out in 2004, and the box, as you can see, is kind of dinged up. I did buy this used when I acquired it, so like I said, it's been sitting on the shelf for a while, not getting any better. This one was published by Decision Games. The designers are Joseph Miranda and Michael Myers. The original game came with 400 half-inch counters, and this one, let's see, comes with 840 half-inch counters, I believe. The original game had a 122 by 28 inch map. This one, of course, says it has a 34 by 22 standard size map. One die, rules booklet, player aid cards. So let's take a look in this thing and see what is in here. And we'll get this out of the way. So, of course, naturally, the first thing we see are little Ziploc baggies, which I don't know if I'll use these or not. I probably will use a GM tray. It looks like there's enough space in here that you could get a tray in there, so that'll make things a little easier. So we probably won't be using those. Of course, there is a hideously yellow, ugly 1d6. I will be using thematic dice if and when I play through this. There's a game response card. This is interesting. And this looks like a poll. They're asking people, what game is this from? And then how would you rate the map, the counters, the boxes, and etc. So that's of historical note, I suppose. There is a rule book, which is just a plain paper, nothing fancy. Remember, folks, this is 2004, so I'm not expecting a lot in the way of components. Although in 2004, I suspect you probably did have better components than what we're seeing here. No color, so it is just black and white on plain old paper, and some counter information there. Sequence of play, definition of terms. Doesn't look like it's rules heavy. And one thing I have heard about this game, I think I've read this, that the battles aren't really resolved necessarily in one turn. You could have multiple turns. So if you fight a battle, the results are not instantly known. So that actually sounds kind of cool to me if that is true. So there are 32 pages of rules in the rule book. We get a scenario book, which seems to be larger than the rule book. It is 40 pages of that. And as I understand it, this game includes the campaign, so you're going to play the entire war through. It also contains smaller scenarios. You're going to get Midway, Solomons, Burma, those kinds of things. And also includes a what-if scenario. It includes War Plan Orange, so you can have the U.S. fight Japan in the early 1930s. So that's also kind of cool. This is the campaign game. Special rules, campaign game number 2, and I'm not sure why we're splitting into different campaigns, but I guess that's just a more added variety for us. Here's the mini games that I mentioned, the Battle of Coral Sea. And of course, in learning the game, you're probably going to want to start with some of the mini games first. Battle of Midway, Eastern Solomons, Santa Cruz Islands. It's all in here, Philippines. To China, Burma, India. So a lot of scenarios in this. So that's good. Here's War Plan Orange. So that is also intriguing. Special game rules for that. So a really nice scenario book. And then here we're getting into, and you'll see the big 1971. These are the designer's notes from 1971. That will certainly be worth the read. There's the carriers involved. Some nice pictures of the war in there as well. So very, very interesting designer note. So this is going to be neat to read through. And even a bit on War Plan Orange there. I think this is all designer's notes. Till we get back in the back, it looks like we have some reinforcements and the turn, I guess they arrive. So this is not a small game. If that's what you're looking for, look elsewhere. record keeping. Well, I don't know how much record keeping there is in this either, but we're going to find that out. Now let's hit the next thing here. And it looks like capabilities charts. I don't know what that means. Missions. So these are mission charts. CRTs. Tells you which CRTs to use. Almost looks like a Dungeon Master's guide sheet there. Bombing of land units. So I'm guessing this is just a player's aid card that we will be using. Supply. So there will be supply in the game. Land units and naval units as well. Breakdown, combine, summary, equivalencies. More player's aid charts is all this is. Who can attack what? That's always nice to know in a war game, right? Entrenching, engineers. So it looks like a very, here we go. It looks like a very involved game, a very detailed game. So I'm not opposed to that. I don't mind the details. I don't mind record keeping. I'm going to let you see this chart. Speaking of record keeping, air mission allocation chart. So there will be air missions, it looks like, and I don't know if you're going to be looking for carriers. You probably will, but definitely bombardment missions around here by target. It says photocopy this chart before play and preserve this copy. So we will definitely remember to do that. Here are the task force tracking sheets. Nothing fancy there. So instead of having the giant stacks of counters, you're going to use task force markers and this sheet to track. Combat results table. So land and air. And this folds out into another trifold. Nope, it's a bifold. Nothing on the back of that. Combat results, tables 1 through 5, and an explanation of results. So interesting. So let's grab now the counter sheets. Looks like 3 counter sheets. And we will start with the Japanese counter sheet. Now these are not very detailed at all. And by that I mean, if you look, this is the Japanese. You can see the carriers up there in the upper rows, and there's no names. It's just carrier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's missing out on some of that historical flavor. I do like to see the ship names in games like this, even if they're groups. I kind of like to see that. So there's some fighters. There's some informational type markers on there as well. These counters are not very thick. This is what you'd expect from early decision game. It's the old white core. I don't know if you can see that. Very thin counters. And they do have, unfortunately, they have the center nibs, which is going to make punching these a pain in the ass. So there's the Japanese. These, of course, would be the Americans. Same thing. You're going to get carriers there with no names, destroyers. But it does look like it's down to the individual level ship. So that is kind of neat. And I don't think I showed the back of the Japanese one, but we'll show you the back of the American one here. It's like reduced values is what we're dealing with. Informational type markers. Very thin, flimsy type counters. And here's the land units. There's the Japanese on the left and the Americans on the right. And you can see that there's some big values on those counters. Looking up here, large numbers. So there's 180, 200. That's pretty big. So those are probably either pretty large forces or something's going on there. Backside to those, again, we're looking at reduced information. And I'm going to look again. I think, not sure if there's Commonwealth counters in here or not. But anyway, so that's the counters. Now we're going to take a quick look at the maps. I should say there are 2 of these in here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the whole thing on, but we'll try. We'll unfold. Yeah, this is this is going to take up the entire table. Now, it does fit on this table, but you can't see that on camera, of course. There's about 2.5 to 3 inches of this hanging off. And I will open up the other side here. So if I'm going to do a playthrough of this one, it's going to take the entire table and potentially more, because you're probably going to have those task force sheets sitting off to the side. Now, this is a paper map. Not glossy, that's good, but you're going to have to use plexi to hold this down or something to hold it down, because it is going to move. But it's not a bad looking map. Actually, it looks pretty nice. And you can see that there is overlap on these maps, so you would kind of have to line those up. Let's see if we can do it. Guadalcanal there. So these maps do line, or these hexes do line up, kind of like that. So that's how it's going to look on the table. Yeah, I do like the map. It is neat looking. There are, so you can see the mountains up here. They're very they stand out. So if you're trying to cross those hexes, I'm sure that's going to have an impact on your units. Here's the Hawaiian Islands, of course, Australia down here. New Zealand is barely down here. And then, of course, all the islands in the middle. So that's it. Just a quick look at USN Deluxe. And Gary, if you're still watching, maybe we ought to get this thing up to Buckeye Game Fest or something and play through it one of these days. And that way you can see what it plays like. That would take some learning on somebody's part, though. And I don't know if there's going to be time enough to do that before the next convention or not. All right, as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you back here next time.